So I wanted to take a little bit of time and discuss why carbohydrates don't make us fat. So it's very common in society right now. It's becoming a cultural norm that carbohydrates are demonized, that they make us fat, sick, unhealthy, give us heart disease, cancer, diabetes, when all of that is not true. What carbohydrates are an energy source. They're just glucose molecules linked together, and if you look at basic human physiology, ATP or energy generation starts with glucose. Glucose equals carbohydrates. So glucose is a single carbohydrate. What carbohydrate foods contain are lots of glucose molecules and fructose molecules linked together to give us the energy we need to function. Every cell in the human body runs on sugar or glucose. When you go into the hospital, you get hooked up to an IV that contains usually dextrose, which is sugar, in order to reestablish your cellular homeostasis, which is highly dependent on glucose being available for the cells. Our body can regulate how much glucose we take in and generate as energy. And through dietary thermogenesis, which contrary to popular belief, people think that protein increases your metabolic rate when it's actually carbohydrates that increase your metabolic rate. So let's say you take in too much carbohydrates, you actually burn the rest off as heat. What happens when you take in enough carbohydrates every single day, and even more than you think you need, your metabolism goes up because your cells now have the glucose they need to generate energy. Now you're able to do more in your life. You're able to be more productive. You're able to get fitter. It's amazing. Your cells become more efficient at turning glucose into energy. And that helps you to get a nice, lean, fit body over time. The thing is that most of us have actually damaged our metabolism by not eating enough carbohydrates. When we don't eat enough carbohydrates, our metabolism actually lowers in order to compensate for the lack of glucose in the diet. The metabolism slows down so that our body uses protein and fat to generate more glucose. So our body's always prioritizing glucose as a primary nutrient for energy production. So I would be happy to argue with anybody that glucose is the number one essential macronutrient for the human body. When we don't have enough glucose, that's when our health starts to fail. So when we don't have enough glucose, our body has to slow its metabolic rate down in order to turn fat and protein into glucose via dietary gluconeogenesis. I think the most ironic thing about this whole concept of carbohydrates making us fat is that when you go and look at the actual science, it proves otherwise. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize this. Just somebody with a basic understanding of science and can read, can go and read what's in the textbooks about human metabolism, and that our primary substrate for energy production is glucose. And whether we're taking in enough glucose or we're not, we're creating glucose in order to compensate for that lack of glucose in the diet. But what happens when you take in enough glucose in your diet and your fat and protein levels are super low, you're able to actually start to burn the body fat that's stored on your body. So another misconception is that you need to starve yourself in order to burn body fat. That's not true. Fat burns in the flame of carbohydrates. So when we're going about our daily lives in a fed state, meaning that we're eating regularly, we're actually burning a 50-50 ratio of carbs to fat. So we're burning carbohydrates and we're having energy to burn fat. So we're not having to actually starve ourselves in order to burn the fat that's on our bodies, and we naturally get leaner while supporting a high metabolism, supporting a high level of health. This diet works. High carb, low fat, plant-based, vegan, eating all the fruit, rice, potatoes, pasta you want, but keeping the fat and protein super low. That is the key to human health, longevity, vitality, a fit, lean body for life. So, what are you waiting for? Get those carbs in today.